You're listening to the Assembly Call IU podcast and postgame show, the place where Indiana fans across the globe hang out online after every IU basketball game. Join us for our live broadcasts on Thursday nights and immediately following every IU game at our website, assemblycall.com. That's assemblycall.com. And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another disappointed episode of the Assembly Call, as tonight your Indiana Hoosiers fall 77-72 at home to the Iowa Hawkeyes. This is the Hoosiers' third straight home loss in Big Ten play. Indiana now 13-10 overall, 4-8 in Big Ten conference play. And just a really disappointing night given how much excitement everybody had coming off that thrilling victory over Michigan State to see how this Indiana team would back that performance up, how they would come out and play. And while the Hoosiers, obviously were able to cut into that 10-point halftime deficit and make it a game there at the end, the fact that they even had to do that and were playing from behind most of the night and had those periods of listless play is just disappointing to everybody who was really hopeful the team had turned a corner against Michigan State. And while this game was better than previous home outings, it's a really sad statement on where we are right now that we can call a 5-point loss at home progress. But that's kind of where we are right now in this season. I'm your host, Jerod Morris. I'm here with Ryan Phillips and Andy Bottoms. We're going to break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU postgame show. And let's start the show the way we start every show, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And for tonight's banner moment, I'm going to go all the way back to the first play of the second half, the Rob Phinisee to Romeo Langford alley-oop that started off. The second half was a nice little momentum builder for Indiana there early in the second half. And really the reason why I picked this is because it was a sign of things to come in the second half for those two. Because Juwan Morgan picked up two awful fouls, which we're going to talk about, and I don't mean awful in terms of calls. Well, the first one wasn't a great call. The second one was just a terrible decision by Juwan. We'll talk about that. But him going out put a lot of pressure on the guys who were left in there. And for as good of a first half as Al Durham had, he didn't really get going in the second half. Justin Smith was a non-factor, and it was basically laid at the feet of Indiana's freshmen to keep the Hoosiers in this game and lead a comeback. And they did. Rob and Romeo really did. Romeo Langford scored 15 points in the second half, had that big three at the end to make it 73-70. And more than that, he played some of the best defense that we've seen from him. Joe Wieskamp came out, made 4 early three-pointers. Romeo held him to 1 point in the second half, and it wasn't just Wieskamp missing good looks. Romeo was really playing better defense. So it was an impressive second half from him, and I really thought that we saw the best play from Rob Phinisee that we've seen since his concussion. He had 6 points, 3 boards, 3 assists in the second half. He was much more aggressive. His defense was, you look at what Jordan Bohannon did, and you think, Rob must have gotten lit up. And, yeah, in a few possessions, he wasn't great, but Bohannon also made some great shots. I thought Rob really competed defensively and really, like I said, played some of the best minutes that we've seen from him since the concussion. And that's a good sign. That's an important sign here as we go down the stretch. So, this was a game where Indiana needed more from its more experienced guys, didn't get enough, but I thought the two freshmen who played the most minutes, Rob and Romeo, really came to play in the second half. And so hat tip to those guys. That is the banner moment for yet another Indiana home loss. All right, today's Hoosier Proud banner moment brought to you, as always, by our friends at Hoosier Proud and Home Field. At homefieldapparel.com, you will find the comfiest and most unique licensed IU apparel that is available anywhere. And at HoosierProud.com, you'll find great state of Indiana-themed apparel while sending 10% of your purchase to causes around Indiana, like the Hoosier Veterans Assistance Foundation. Both brands were started by an IU grad, and all Hoosier Proud and Home Field apparel is designed and printed out of Indianapolis. Be sure to check out Home Field's vintage IU designs, including the classic Indiana warm-up script tees and long sleeves, which are printed on incredibly soft tri-blends.
Can a brother get some coupons?
And yes, of course, don't forget to use the promo code ASSEMBLY at checkout today for 15% off your order on either site. That's promo code ASSEMBLY at HoosierProud.com and HomeFieldApparel.com. All right, well, it is time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. And let's start with Andy Bottoms, your Bottoms line on this Indiana loss.
This was a game where IU's effort at times in the second half in particular really looked like what we saw at Michigan State. But there were a couple lengthy stretches where it just wasn't what it needed to be, particularly on the offensive end. One of those came in the first half when Iowa went to the zone. They took a timeout after Juwan hit a three. For 11 possessions, in the next 11 possessions, Iowa ended up playing zone most of the rest of the game. But in those first 11 possessions against the zone, IU had 5 turnovers, 4 in the first 5 possessions, settled for threes, and scored 3 points in 11 possessions. And that was really where the game turned. That the momentum that IU had gained by, responding to Iowa's hot start with a hot start of their own, that momentum quickly went away. And then they played relatively even over the remainder of the half. But you go in with a 10-point deficit. And then you kind of look at the second half and say, if you played this way the entirety of the game, it wouldn't be that close. And some of the late shot clock, prayers that Iowa threw up that went in wouldn't have mattered as much. And there was a similar stretch early in the second half. IU came out really strong, scored on 5 of their first 6 trips, and then they got into this lull. And I think Alex tweeted something about it as well, that it was a series of missed opportunities for IU where, Iowa missed some shots. But it was another series. I think there was a weird lineup in there for part of it, but an 8 possession stretch where IU had 1 point, 3 turnovers, and 3 missed field goals. And, even though IU really played better down the stretch offensively and on almost every late possession came up with something, it was really those 2 stretches where you scored 4 points over, 19 possessions in those 2 stretches that really were killers in a 5-point game. And this team just continues to, while those stretches were a bit less than what we saw in home loss to Nebraska and in the loss to Rutgers and the loss to Michigan, those stretches were less frequent, but they were still just absolute killers in those stretches where the offense struggled so much and dug a hole in the first half that IU really wasn't able to ever work its way out of, even when the game did get tight in the second half. So to me, those were the big stretches and those droughts where even when they stopped Iowa during those stretches, they weren't able to chip into the lead. And, in a game like this where you had that many possessions, you got, 19 possessions out of about 67. So you're, not quite a third of the possessions where you got basically nothing out of 2 key stretches there.
Well, Ryan, I follow you on Twitter, so I have a feeling I know what your rant is going to be about tonight. Why don't you go ahead?
It's so funny. We've defended Justin Smith's defense all year long, and I just didn't see it from him tonight. He really made some serious mistakes, and I think that contributed to what I thought. I thought Indiana lost this game in the first half. I mean, you get down by 10 to Iowa, you've got to outscore them by 10 in the second half or more. And Iowa's a team that can score. Iowa's a team that can shoot free throws, and when you're coming from behind, a team that can shoot and score and make their free throws, that's just a recipe for disaster when you're trying to come back on them, because you're going to get into situations where you got to foul them or you've got to protect against the drive and easy baskets if you need to come back, and that leads to kickouts and threes. And Justin Smith really, to me, had a horrible game tonight. I know the numbers don't look good, but they don't look as awful as I think his performance was. And it was noted on the broadcast. He was closing out to known shooters with his arms down, not contesting shots. He did it repeatedly. And then in the second half, there was a play where he kind of got taken down. I thought maybe he got fouled, and he laid on his stomach on the offensive end underneath the basket and didn't get a call, and sort of slowly got up, was not there on the back end when he ran back. And sort of jogged back when his teammates are playing 5-on-4. He jogs back, and then they turn around, take it back on offense, and he's basically walking up the court. It's like, you know what, dude? You're playing for Indiana at Assembly Hall in a game that you really need to win against the top 25 team. Put some hustle into it. And Archie Miller pulled him out right away. And honestly, I would have been fine if he sat the rest of the game. I was furious at that, especially because it was the second half, and in the first half, his lazy defense cost Indiana repeatedly. And so, you want to be upset against a foul. You got to work to earn those fouls, and you got to work to earn them on both ends, on offense and defense. And he just doesn't. And we've seen this. And I thought that at times against Michigan State, he looked like the guy we want him to be. And then at other times, this season in the Big Ten, he's just looked like a guy who is not engaged at all, who's just kind of loping through games instead of being engaged and being the player we all think he can be. And that was embarrassing. The fact that he didn't run back on defense was embarrassing. And then the fact that he walked up on offense after that, it's like, dude, you just rested through an entire defensive possession. How about you run on offense and get into position? Instead, he was barely across half court when the ball was at the 3-point line. It's like, you know what? If you're injured, that's one thing. Stay down and let them blow it dead. But if you're not, there's no excuse for walking back on defense and then walking up on offense. There's none, especially when you're a guy who's played the way he's played this year. And I hate getting down and criticizing players, but that was just embarrassing to me. And the fact that he's running out on defense, he's supposed to be one of our better defenders, and he's running out on defense, not even sort of engaged enough to challenge a 3-point shooter who was 4 of 4 on 3-pointers in the first half in Wieskamp. And he's a guy, by the way, if you've watched tape on Iowa, that's what he does, is shoot threes. He's not going to drive by you. And again, he sort of let Bohannon have an open one later too off of a switch. And it's like, dude, did you even pay attention during film? Did you pay attention to the scouting report at all? Because this is the one thing Iowa can do. None of them can drive by you one-on-one. They're all just going to try and launch threes. And Iowa was 10 of 25 from 3. And quite frankly, they were only 10 of 25 because a lot of the other guys in Indiana worked really hard defensively to contest a lot of shots. And Bohannon wound up being 5 of 8. And I'd say about half of those makes were contested. Probably two out of 5, maybe 3 out of 5 were contested or were the kind of shots you'd want him to take. So I just, that kind of thing frustrates me because Justin Smith is so talented. And I know the season hasn't gone the way he wants to, but you know what? There's a way to make up for that. And it's by playing hard and playing smart and giving your all to the team. And you know what? If you're giving your all, you'll wind up getting it back tenfold. And I just, it frustrates the heck out of me to see a guy that talented just go through the motions and not be dedicated. And it drove me nuts. And as I said, though, Indiana lost this game in the first half by not being smart defensively. I don't even care about the missed offensive possessions. You can't give up 46 points at home in a half. You just can't. And I know Andy's right about the offensive possessions and the zone and all of that, but none of that matters if you're giving up 46 points in the first half. None of it. And they just, they just walked through parts of the game, and it really was frustrating because in the second half, I thought they looked good. There were stretches where it didn't work, where it wasn't great, but that's college basketball. There are stretches in every game for every team that don't look great for the most part. And, I thought the second half, if you contain that as itself, they played really well and they played really hard and they played really focused defensively, particularly. They got beat on some shots. That happens. But I thought they played very well. And I thought that there was a much more life and aggressiveness in the team. The first half was a disaster, and it was really upsetting.
It was. It absolutely was. And, you're right about giving up that many points in the first half, especially when you're supposed to be a team that hangs your hat on defense. Even against a good offensive team like Iowa, you can't do that, and you can't do it at home.
Yeah, I was just about to add that.
We have to have more pride. I don't know what happened to the advantage at Simon Scott Assembly Hall, but it is gone. I mean, it's like we play worse. And what you were talking about with Justin Smith is especially disturbing, concerning when juxtaposed with what he just did against Michigan State. It's not like we haven't seen it. I mean, when he's engaged and into it, he can be one of the better defenders in the Big Ten, but it's just so inconsistent. The next thing that I want to hit here, guys, is this was really a game where, number one, Indiana needed more out of its starters. Juwan Morgan, you just talked about Justin Smith. Juwan Morgan had 17 points, 4 rebounds. He was an efficient 7 for 9. He could basically do anything he wanted offensively. The problem is that he only played 22 minutes. Now, he didn't foul out. He finished with 4 fouls. So, in part, he didn't play that many minutes because he was on the bench for a lot of it. And I understand at times you want to take a player out, but this is always my issue with it. Juwan doesn't even foul out. If he's able to play 2 or 3 more minutes in this game, we might win the game.
Yeah,
because
he could have fouled out very quickly the way those calls were going.
Okay, no. I certainly say take him out and let him settle down. All I'm saying is you foul your own guy out when you take him out for that many minutes, and he finishes the game with 4 fouls. That's all I'm saying. So this is a game where if he plays for 3 or 4 minutes, you might have a chance to win. Because when Indiana went to its bench tonight, Iowa's depth. The better depth that they have over Indiana was really highlighted. They outscored us 14-7 on the bench. Devontae Green struggled. Demezy Anderson struggled. Evan Fitzner struggled. Jake Forrester struggled. If you have a couple more Juwan Morgan minutes instead of Jake Forrester or Evan Fitzner, this might be a different game is what I'm saying. And those margins matter in close games.
Let's be real, though. Juwan, those were I thought they were all legit calls on Juwan.
They were. That's on Juwan, and it's on his coach. He shouldn't have committed the fouls, and Archie should have played him more. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not done talking. Did I sound like I was done talking? Because I wasn't done talking.
Don't even start with the interrupting stuff.
Look, we can't have fun. Come on. It's a talk show about basketball. Relax. No, Juwan got that fourth really early in the second half. And quite frankly, with the way he was playing in the post and the way he was using his hands and fouling, I would have held him out too, quite frankly, because there's a really hefty chance that a really, high percentage chance he would have fouled out almost immediately going back in.
Take him out. Let him settle down. I agree. And then get him back in the game.
They sat him until the under 8 timeout, which is when I would have brought him back in too. I think that's conventional wisdom for coaching. And quite frankly, it's probably the right one, because if you foul him out at 10 minutes, the rest of the team is going to slump their shoulders and say, well, we're not coming back.
Except that you just won at Michigan State without him, so you would have been able to point to that example. I'm saying he should have played more than 22 minutes is what I'm saying. He didn't foul out of the game.
Well, he did that to himself.
Yes, he did. And it's on him. I agree.
I honestly, I'm not upset with Archie for sitting him until the under 8 timeout. I'm not at all, because quite frankly, if you lose him at the 10-minute mark, you lose him at the 12-minute mark, you lose him at the 9-minute mark.
But then play him in the first half when he only has 2 fouls. You can get more minutes out of him, is what I'm saying. There was a better way to manage it.
Sure,
that's my point. And in a game like this, 3 or 4 more minutes could have made a difference.
You're also obsessed with the play guys with 2 fouls thing.
I'm not obsessed with it. No. I'm saying this is a clear example where it would have made a big difference.
And he has played him with 2 fouls before. He has, and I think that in this game, it got to the point where without Juwan, they cut it to 2 towards the end of the half. They were in a flow. They were actually playing pretty well without him. And then, boom, Iowa scored 8 points there and went on a run at the end. So they were playing.
Bohannon.
Yeah, they were playing pretty well without him. It wasn't like they were falling further and further and further behind. They were playing pretty well, and then, boom, got hit in the face. And so, maybe you shove him back in there, but then there's like 30 seconds left in the half. I mean, I get why he didn't do it. Now, again, I'll criticize Archie for leaving a guy on the bench if he's leaving on the bench for a really long time and Indiana is getting it, there's a 15-0 run or something in the middle of the quarter. I get that. But the way that was going, they were actually playing pretty well with DeRon Davis in there. And then I forget who else. I don't even remember what the lineup was when they cut it to about 2. But then, I'm fine with him holding him to the under 8 because you need him the rest of the way, basically. And then he only pulled him out for rest breaks after that for 10 seconds at a time or something. So I was fine with the usage of Juwan. I think the fouling is on Juwan, and that's the minute usage is on Juwan because those were bad fouls. And
that shouldn't be lost. It's more on Juwan. You're right. It is more on him.
The 4th foul was ridiculous. Let the guy go. He's going to score a layup on you anyway. You're grabbing him around the waist. If he's got position on you, let him go. You're more important than that foul and then stopping him right there.
Andy, add some sanity to the end of the segment, please.
I don't know if I could possibly. I think the challenge with bringing him back in is the way that Iowa was playing through Cook. And I think in some ways, Garza getting into foul trouble hurt Morgan a bit more because then it seemed like he ended up having to play Cook a little bit more, I think, than they would have liked. They started out Justin Smith on him, and I don't know if that is what led to some of Justin Smith's struggles defensively in terms of getting his hands up, where you go from guarding Tyler Cook and then all of a sudden you're guarding guys on the perimeter. Not excusing the stuff that you talked about, but I think that really kind of, while it seems like a positive thing, I mean, once Iowa basically abandoned playing another true big guy alongside of Cook, it made it a little bit hard to figure out what you would do with anybody, and there was really no place to hide Juwan defensively in that situation.
Especially because if Juwan had been...
Hey, I wasn't done talking. Did it sound like I was done talking?
Hey, you know what?
The chemistry that the three of you have.
Yeah, we love each other, folks.
Yeah.
No, what I was going to say is that Morgan would have had to have either been guarding Cook or been the double guy, and that's just asking for a foul at that point, too. So it's worth noting that.
Yeah, I think now the flip side of that argument is they were down 7 when he went out with the fouls, and they were down 8 when he came back in. So you basically burned 20% of the game and didn't really get any further behind, but you didn't make up any ground either. I didn't necessarily mind the first half. I think he did bring him back in a little bit toward the end of the first half, and then took him back out. But yeah, you basically treaded water for 20% of the game, which is not really a great feeling. So do you need to do something else? I think, for me, I just put so much more back on the 4th foul was just so silly.
Horrendous.
The third one, you can kind of argue, did he sell it a little bit coming around the screen? Yeah, probably. But Romeo's beat, and it's another case where like you just kind of got to get out of the way and find things to do there. And I think Juwan even said the same thing. I saw a post game comment already. I've got to manage that situation a little bit better. But he has to start doing that because it's become a pretty consistent.
At what point do you do that? It's getting late in the season.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Coming up on the Assembly Call, we continue our breakdown of Indiana's loss to Iowa. I'll point out tonight's meaningful moment you might have missed, and then we will go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes from this game. You are listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us. You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Jerod Morris. I'm here with Andy Bottoms and Ryan Phillips, and we're breaking down Indiana's disappointing 77-72 loss to Iowa as the Hoosiers are unable to back up their big win over Michigan State. With another win back at home, they'll have another opportunity on Sunday against Ohio State, and that's really a game that they're going to need to get, especially with 3 straight losses at home, which is just unconscionable. So that's something that certainly needs to be addressed. Guys, let's talk about some meaningful moments that folks might have missed. And, to me, the most pivotal moment in the game happened back in the first half. And, Iowa had, kind of been leading for a little while. Indiana comes back. And so they pushed it out a little bit. Indiana had cut it to 31-29. Iowa goes on a little 5-0 run before the end of the half. We cut it to 36-32 after Al Durham makes a three-pointer. So it's 36-32. The crowd's starting to get into it. We finally got some ball movement. We're getting some things going. We whipped the ball around. I think Romeo drove the baseline, whips the ball around. It goes to Devontae Green. He's shooting a 3 to put us within 1. The crowd would have absolutely erupted. He misses the 3, and Jordan Bohannon goes down and drains 2 of them. And so in the span of 30 seconds, instead of it being a 1-point game and all the momentum being on Indiana's side, it is 42-32, and that 10-point deficit, Iowa essentially nursed that all the way to the end of the game. And, they just kind of outlasted Indiana because we kept chipping away, 1 or 2 points there in the second half. But, Ryan, your point was right. I mean, they're leading by 10 at the half. It's really hard to outscore them by 10 and a half. And that play right there, we're coming off a game against Michigan State where it felt like every time Indiana needed to hit a big 3, they made it. And tonight, it wasn't quite that way. That some of those threes just weren't falling like they were against Michigan State. What did Indiana finish from 3 tonight overall for the
21.
game? Yeah, 7 of 21. And, there were a couple like that one from Devontae Green, and there was one from Al late in the second half where if you hit those, it's a different game. And tonight...
And they weren't bad shots.
No, they weren't bad shots. I mean, look, Devontae Green, and we'll talk about him. I mean, he really did not have a good night. But that was a really big shot, a big opportunity, and look, it takes 2. Iowa's got to go down and hit those shots, and sometimes you have to tip your cap to the opponent. And what Jordan Bohannon and Tyler Cook did tonight, inside and outside, I mean, they came in and just made really tough shots, and I tip my cap to those guys because those were great shots that they made, and they were especially timely. It felt like every single shot Bohannon hit was a dagger, like it would kill momentum or extend momentum. And look, when you have a guard who can do that, it makes a big difference. So, and tonight Indiana couldn't make those shots.
Absolutely cannot stand that guy. But he did have
like just because he's good and hits big shots, or is there something he does that annoys you?
Can't I just hate someone, Jerry?
Yeah, no, you can. I just didn't know if I was missing something.
No, I mean he makes big shots, but he's also a talker, and he's he
is a talker.
I'm not a big fan of that. You know what? Jordan Hulls. I never saw Jordan Hulls talk trash when he hit a 3. And quite frankly, Mr. Bohannon, you are no Jordan Hulls.
Ooh,
so,
I like that.
All right. But he was big for tonight. Again, tip your cap to him. He was big. That 3 he hit at the end was just absurd. There's no reason that should go in, and Indiana could not have defended that any differently, I don't think. I mean, really, You're not going to run out to a guy 35 feet from the basket and get in his face. You want him taking that shot off 1 foot, and he just made it. I will say the one before that in the corner, Rob Phinisee, he pulled a freshman move. You don't help off the 3-point shooter, and he helped off. Gave Bohannon he recovered, but he gave Bohannon just enough room to get it off, and that's something that I think Rob will see in film and maybe never do again. But it was a freshman mistake, and he left the guy open in the corner. And if you think about it, if you take those 2 threes at the end away, they were 8 of 23, and you feel pretty good about it. Yeah. But 10 of 25 makes it 40%. It's a little different, and so that really kind of changed that. But the first half, it seemed like they were hitting everything. Second half, everything was contested. Indiana did a really nice job in the second half for most of the 20 minutes, contesting all those threes and playing, I thought, pretty darn good defense. They held Iowa to 31 points, and that includes all the free throw shooting late.
Yeah. Andy, what other moments stood out to you?
Yeah, I talked about those couple stretches that I thought were really big. There was another one, and I wish I had written down what the score was at this point, but I had started to get some momentum back. It was probably about midway through the second half. Iowa had turned it over, and IU's coming down the floor with the ball. That was the third turnover in 4 possessions for Iowa. IU's got the ball, and I'm not sure what they could have cut the lead to. Phinisee took a long 2 really early in the shot clock that just seemed like he had just had a nice drive. The possession before that just seemed like I wouldn't say you don't need a heat check after you drive for a layup, but it just seemed like an ill-advised shot, not really what IU was looking to get. They managed to keep Iowa from scoring on the other end, and then Al missed that 3 that you talked about. Then Bohannon goes down and gets fouled in that and one where they kind of got a little bit tangled up. He's coming around to screen. They seal off Durham, I think was the big guy that was in there, and Phinisee fouled him in a situation where he really didn't have any way to stop him. And I thought, I thought Phinisee played really well in the second half. I thought he looked, continued to just give you some of those concerns in the first half where just didn't seem quite like himself. But I really thought defensively, and it seems odd to say this about a guy who guarded somebody who scored 19 points in the second half, but I really did think he played pretty well against Bohannon and really tried to get up in him and fought through screens. And I thought for the most part did a good job, forced him to make tough shots. Some of those 19 points obviously came on free throws down the stretch, but I thought he played so much better in the second half. But that was a stretch where it was a shot and a defensive play that you kind of wish you could have had back.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning on Phinisee too. You mentioned one of the longer jumpers he took. He's clearly not back from a shooting perspective. No. He's getting there with the drive, and he's gotten much better with the drive over the last few games since since coming back from his injury. But he's not there shooting wise, and it just looks awkward. It looks weird, and it's missing by a lot. So clearly, that's just a repetition thing. He didn't practice for however long, and it's clearly had an effect on him. But I did think it was encouraging to see him driving more effectively now. He had 8 points, but he also had 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, only 1 turnover. I thought that was a really nice game from Rob. It's the best we've seen since he's been back, I think. And but that jump shot is going to take a little bit of time. I mean, that's repetition, and it's just something he hasn't had.
So let's dig into a few numbers. One number that I thought was interesting coming into this game is that Iowa has not lost a game this year in which Joe Wieskamp has scored in double digits. And tonight, he got off to that huge start, scored 12 points, it seemed like, before the game even started. He only finished with 13, so Indiana really defended him well in the second half. But Romeo. This is where attention to detail becomes so important if you're going to win Big Ten games against good teams. Because he scores 13 points. So, if you keep him in single digits at 9, it's a 73-72 game. And the margins are so small. And so this is why, Ryan, as you mentioned, you've got to close out to a guy like him that's a good shooter. You can't let him get those open looks because those are the differences between winning and losing the game. So I thought from a positive standpoint, Andy, something we saw in the Michigan State game was the return of assists finally for Indiana because the ball was moving. The guys look like they have more of a clue offensively. And because you get a guy like Jordan Davis in there with his ability to pass. And tonight, Indiana with 17 assists on 26 made field goals, Jordan Davis with 7 of them. And, we haven't talked a lot about Durham yet, and his numbers don't jump off the stat sheet quite like they did against Michigan State, but he plays 23 minutes. Great, again, to see him playing 20-some minutes, and looked good. Like, he was moving pretty well. That was good to see. 4 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, no turnovers. He was really productive when he was in there. Had a few defensive possessions that might not have been great, but he continues to be a really important piece for this team offensively, to the point where you would have really liked to see him get more than 2 shots off in 23 minutes. But part of that was the zone. And obviously there just weren't as many opportunities for him to just go post up on the block like he normally has. But he is really finding a way in these last 2 games to contribute and make big plays. So that was obviously good to see. And then, on a downer note, Devontae Green plays 17 minutes, turns it over 4 times, and of his 4 missed shots, we had the 1 3-pointer, but he had a couple of floaters that really had no chance, and those are shots that are close to turnovers. And so, just not a good night for Devontae Green coming off his really strong night against Michigan State. Andy, what numbers jumped out to you tonight?
Yeah, the assists were one that I was going to talk about. I think IU had 11 assists in the first half on 13 makes, and then 6 on 13 makes in the second half. Turned into a little bit more one-on-one in the second half. And actually, it was funny looking at the second half box score for Iowa. For as many points as those guys had, I think they only had 3 assists as a team in the second half on 10 made field goals. So at some level, it's just 2 guys going out and making a ton of plays, because they had 27 of their 31 in the second half between Bohannon and Cook. So the assist number, I think, continues to be a positive and speaks to the ball movement. I agree with you about Jerod not getting as many shots. I really felt like IU had some better opportunities, and think I saw a quote from Juwan to this effect after the game, where they had some things that they could have done better against the zone, where there were some potential high-low passes that were there. I thought a couple times guys in the short corner, especially Justin Smith, ended up getting the ball, catching it behind the backboard. I watched my daughter do this like 4 times in a game over the weekend, so I'm sadly familiar with that, with what usually happens when that occurs. But I thought they really struggled to attack in that way. I thought they did better off of cutters and things like that, where Justin got some of his dunks and points that way. The turnover number, only 4 in the second half, was big, because Iowa had 16 points off of 8 IU turnovers in the first half, so only 3 points off turnovers in the second half. That number really cut down quite a bit. IU second chance points wise, went out 14-2, but got outscored from the bench. And Iowa really was, in the first half, all their points either came in the lane from 3-point range or on free throws. And I think the game ended up pretty close. They might have hit a jump shot that was just outside of the lane. But they ended up with, 32 points in the paint, 30 points on 3-pointers, and 13 from the free throw line. It's only 2 points outside of there. So they really did, kind of the way that they like to play and get you to play fast and do some things like that. But I think turnovers were big in the first half. And again, I think it's just another way that IU really tightened things up in the second half. But you can't, as you said, I think for this team, or really any team, probably these stretches, trying to find ways to shorten or eliminate the stretches of bad play where, again, the turnovers come in bunches and you defensive breakdowns come in bunches and you lead to easy points for the other team. This team just can't. There's some teams out there that can probably do that. The elite of the elite can withstand some of those stretches, but this isn't one of those teams. And I don't think they have to play perfect, but they have to get pretty close to it. And you hope a little bit more as they kind of step back and look at some of these games, they realize just how thin some of those margins can be. And the difference between, you play like this tonight and have, fewer long droughts as you did against the Nebraska or a Michigan or something like that. Those games are substantially closer if you play with the effort that you did tonight, but you just can't, have those lapses of the length that they seem to come for IU. And I think some of that is, some of the guys that are in during those stretches that, made some questionable decisions and things like that. But I think the bench play, as you said, was another one where you kind of highlighted. I thought Durham played really well, did a little bit of a lot of things, but really outside of that, you didn't get much, if anything, off the bench. And that was such a huge factor in being able to withstand Juwan's injury against Michigan State.
And Iowa goes 9-10 deep, so you knew you were going to have some contributions from the bench, but Indiana just unable to get them tonight. All right, coming up on the Assembly Call, we continue our breakdown of Indiana's loss to Iowa. We haven't talked much about Al Durham yet. He was terrific in the first half. We need to talk about him. And then just our general feelings after this game as we head into Sunday against Ohio State. That's next here on the Assembly Call. You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Catch us live immediately following every IU basketball game and every Thursday night at our website, assemblycall.com. And while you're there, make sure that you sign up for our free IU Hoops email newsletter. Over 6,000 of your fellow IU fans are subscribed, and it will make you a smarter and more well-informed IU basketball fan. I'm Jerod Morris. I'm here with Andy Bottoms and Ryan Phillips, and we're breaking down Indiana's 77-72 loss to the Iowa Hawkeyes tonight in Bloomington. Ryan, let's talk about Al Durham, because I thought in the first half, when Indiana really needed a spark, he really stepped up and provided it. You know, he made a three when no one really wanted to drive the ball. Al took it and went, got himself to the line a couple of times and was really productive. I think he had 11 points in the first half, or actually he might have had all of his points in the first half. Yeah, he had 12 points in the first half. And, so it was kind of a tale of two halves for him. I mean, the second half could not get himself going, did not score, missed both of his threes, had a rebound and assist, did have a block, and played 18 minutes, and I thought played pretty well defensively. So his game was better than what the numbers suggest. But again, in the first half, Indiana goes through these lulls sometimes where no one really wants to step up offensively, and a lot of times it's Al that's just like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to drive to the basket. I'm going to step up and make a big shot. And so he continues to be a guy now over the last 5 games. I have to look at the numbers, but I think over the last 5 games now, his scoring average has got to be up over 10. It's probably like 10.3. And, we talked for a long time about this team needing a second scorer to step up, and now he's been a guy, double figures in 4 out of the last 5 games. He's become a reliable guy who you can count on for scoring production. So the second half numbers don't look great. But once again, he stepped up with double-digit points, and I thought, importantly, was really there offensively when no one else really seemed to want to be aggressive. He decided to lead the way.
Well, he didn't score in the second half, but his defense never let up. He is Indiana's most consistent player on both ends of the floor. I mean, he is. There's no question. He's the most reliable player on the team right now. And I know that the scoring averages for Morgan and Langford are great and everything, but you get fits and starts with them. Morgan with the foul trouble. Romeo Langford sometimes just disappears for 10 minutes at a time and wanders around the perimeter instead of doing what he does best, and that's driving and getting into the lane and putting pressure on defenses. And we saw that again tonight in the first half. I mean, I was texting you guys during it, just like, why is he just standing there and firing threes when that's not what he does? He needs to get into the lane, get fouled, or get a layup. He can beat anybody on Iowa's team one-on-one. But Al is their team's most consistent player, and he deserves every accolade he gets. I think that when he gets mentioned on national broadcasts, he deserves it because he's earned it and he's become a better player and he's made himself a better player. And right now, I am fine with him being in 35 minutes a game because at least offensively, you're going to get effort the entire time he's in there. And then offensively, I just think that, in the second half, the flow of the game went away from him. And look, he's not a guy who's going to stand and take a contested three. He's a guy who's going to catch and shoot a three or drive into the middle and maybe pull up as we've seen him do. Or
his mid-range game is awesome.
It is. I mean, and honestly, he's a guy who came, and I know he said he didn't need to work on his shot. His shot's really pretty right now. And it's where it needs to be. And he drove into the lane in the second half and kind of lost it going up. And it was funny because he usually finishes with his right hand when he goes up in the lane. Yeah. And he tried to finish it with his left hand. And it just didn't work. I don't know if he lost the ball on the way up or what. But he's just a guy who gives you a max effort at all times. I am never afraid that he's going to get beat defensively. Sure, it's going to happen because that's just basketball. But I just am never afraid of that guy. And I am always 100% sure that guy's going to give you max effort and be a leader for the team. And, I'm not sure if I like him playing a lot, but I'm not sure if we wouldn't be better off having him be the first guy off the bench if the team is struggling. But the problem is I don't know who to start ahead of him. So it's because I think there have been some games where he's come off the bench and played his best games. So right now, I just don't know if there is a lineup change in the future. But man, I mean,
you would start. I guess you'd have to start Devontae.
Yeah, but I wouldn't even do that. I would think about maybe moving Morgan to the perimeter. And
I guess you could start.
Yeah,
Juwan.
I mean, or just shift things around. I don't know how you would do it, but I can't say enough about Al. I think he's become India's most reliable player on both ends of the floor, and he's also the most consistent shooter at the free throw line and from three. So really, that's a guy who I really look forward to watching his growth, not only the end of the season, but towards next year as well.
Andy, you want to hop in here for Al Durham Appreciation Hour?
Yeah, I really thought it was another game in the first half where, like you said, nobody else really seemed to want to step up. And if it wasn't for him, the game really gets out of control. And we all talked about the game kind of being lost in the first half. And I think that's still probably true. But, he really stepped up. Every wide open shot he had, he made. And I thought, I don't know what the difference really was in the second half. Maybe it was not having. I'm not sure if things kind of clogged up where I was playing their zone, even the back line of it up really high. And so I don't know if that just didn't give him enough room on the wing on the perimeter to get some shots off. He did get a couple off, but did think he played well. I think defensively he continues to put forth a lot of effort and has really turned into a consistent guy. And the only part about potentially thinking, does he do good off the bench? I looked now at the box score and he played 35 minutes. But at one point I was tweeting out he needs to be back in the game, and he may have only been out for 3 minutes. And I was like, yeah, we got to get him back out there. But I think you just need the energy and the leadership. We've talked a lot about him really stepping into that role, and you see and continue to see how important that really is. That he's become more vocal and more active in that regard. But the reality is you step back and you look at the second half, and you got 18 points combined out of Al and Justin in the first half, and you got 0. Combined from him in the second half, and I thought IU played well in the second half, even without significant contributions from those guys. But it just goes to show on some level the inconsistency of what the team really is right now. But certainly from an effort standpoint, I think Al played really well, and it was another solid game for him. I think he's really done a nice job of stacking these solid performances after one another, really not letting up and building on one, not backsliding into a lesser performance. He's really been able to string these together, which is going to be important for whatever the rest of the season holds.
So I'm looking at Twitter and some of the comments coming out of the post-game press conferences, and I see one from Archie where he says, "I wasn't terribly disappointed with our team tonight." And I don't want this segment to be let's pick apart Archie's words here, because I want to see the whole thing in the full context. But I do think it's an interesting question. Like, are you guys disappointed in the team tonight? Because on the one hand, as we've pointed out, the defensive effort was much better in the second half. Certain individual players had good games. And yet, at the end of the day, coming off a big road victory over Michigan State in another really big spot at home, we lost. And that's 3 home losses in a row. And, what excuse really is there, given everybody who was out there tonight? I mean, the team was pretty healthy. It was the same lineup that went up to Michigan State. You're down 10 at halftime to Iowa. I mean, I am disappointed in how this went. Happy with, certain individual elements of it. But again, 3rd straight home loss. We've got to get back to a point where playing like this is unacceptable at home. And I realize we're building back to it, but I'm still pretty disappointed in this game overall, despite, the few positive things that we've been able to pull out from it.
Yeah, I think that, again, we've always kind of been like, let's not parse a coach's
and I probably shouldn't have prefaced it that way, but it was just an interesting segue into it.
Because I will say that, and I've said this a million times on the show, is that right after the game, the coach is reacting to what just happened. He's not reacting to the full game and everything. That he's reacting, hey, we had a chance to win the game at the end against a good team. And, so I can't feel bad about that. But it's honestly, him talking on his coach's show is far more valuable than right after the game. They have to do it after the game because newspaper reporters need something to write about. Us damn journalists. But I will say that I think that I am not disappointed in a lot of what we saw tonight. I'm disappointed in the results, certainly, and heavily disappointed in the result because I really badly wanted to win this game. I'm disappointed in stretches of the game where I thought they played not very smart, especially in the first half. But if you're going by what we saw towards the end of the game, that second half was very encouraging in stretches. It really was, especially when you consider how they got it down from 10 to 2 or 3 and had it, a real chance. I mean, they were down 3 and Romeo had a 3. And it went in and out, and he didn't follow through on it. And it was pointed out on the broadcast that he didn't follow through on it. He pulled his hand back a little bit. He follows through and snaps it off and lets it go. Maybe that goes in, and maybe it's a tie game. So I don't expect much worse. I mean, I don't expect, the coach after an effort like that to really rip his players or rip his effort.
Yeah.
But I think that there are things that were disappointing that need to be cleaned up, certainly, and need to be better. But I think also there were positives tonight. I mean, I thought Deron Davis, for only scoring 4 points, was really a positive. He played 22 minutes, showing that he can take playing 25 against Michigan State and then follow it up with 22. The 7 assists were fantastic. The 5 rebounds. We're seeing more fight out of Deron. Not that he wouldn't always fight, but that he's capable of sustaining that fight for a little bit longer, just health-wise.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. And I think a guy like Deron Davis could be huge down the stretch for Indiana, because when you're not playing against the zone, that guy I'll take one-on-one with any big guy in the Big Ten with his back to the basket. I really will. And it makes you wonder when you see him play, how different would this season have been if he had been more healthy, and had more of a chance to play. So, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in stretches of this game. I'm disappointed. I'm incredibly disappointed with the result. I'm incredibly disappointed with the way they closed out the first half. In general, I think there's some positives to build on that certainly look better than some of the losses in that 7-game losing streak. I do feel like this team is not the same team that lost 7 in a row. I feel like the way they played tonight, the way they played over the weekend, they look like they've turned a corner a bit. But again, they turned a corner and still lost at home. And so that is disappointing. But I feel like the team maybe has gotten better and is playing with a little more confidence. It's just,
I mean, we are better than we were on the 7-game losing streak. I'll admit that.
I mean,
because the bar had been set wildly low.
Yes, of course. No, but I mean, it's look, if you're grading on a curve here, this was way better than that.
Well, yeah, but I guess what I mean is, because you're right, there were things to build on. But like at some point, these things to build on have to like turn into something, because it's February. So,
for sure.
So that's what I mean.
For
I mean, we're running out of these opportunities. So
I'm just looking at it in the vacuum of tonight, and you're right. And there's not much time left in this season. They already have 8 conference losses. You got to start winning some games, boys.
Yeah.
I mean, you got 10 losses on the season and only 13 wins. I mean, you started January, after your first game of January, you had 12 wins, and you're only got 13 now. So. Yeah, no, trust me, there's got to be an urgency here. But I feel better about the loss tonight than I did about any of the ones during that losing streak. Of course, again, grading on a curve, I still think this is a loss that shouldn't have happened. And also, you look at it, you lose by 5, and you only had, as you said, Juwan Morgan for 22 minutes. That has to change. Juwan's got to be playing 30 to 35 minutes a game. No questions asked. He's got to do that. And when he was out there,
or even 25, 26. No, I'm not bringing that up again.
Don't.
All right, Andy, come on.
Don't take us back there. Don't do that. It's a tough question to answer, and I think you can kind of understand why he answered it the way that he did. I mean, if you really want to parse it, you can read it as he is disappointed, but just not maybe as much as he was before. So I guess if you think of it that way, I kind of fall a little bit into that camp. I mean, I think if you look back at some of the effort and the things like that you really felt were missing in some of the other games, I thought that for the most part, that wasn't the issue tonight. There were some executional things that weren't done as well as they needed to be, and some careless turnovers and some of those kinds of things. But I didn't feel, for the most part, like the struggles tonight were the result of what seemed to be a lack of effort, lack of passion. That I think we would have characterized so many of those other losses as. So in that regard, it's a positive, but I also, look back at those stretches that I talked about offensively and some similar stretches defensively where, one breakdown led to 4, and you'd like to think that 1, coming off of the Michigan State win, and 2, at this point in the season, your team is able to, stop those kinds of stretches a little bit quicker and really react and respond quickly in those scenarios. It didn't seem like that was the case as much as it needed to be. So I think you saw, ultimately everybody wanted to see everything that went well in the Michigan State game carry over into the game today. And I think if that was your expectation, you're probably a little bit disappointed, because some of those things did translate for periods of time, but not as much as they needed to, and not for as long as they needed to.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just disappointed.
I mean, it is disappointing. It's a disappointing loss. But I don't know. You know what I really want right now, and I think we really need is Race Thompson to get back.
He's been practicing, so I guess it's just a
know.
matter of conditioning now. So hopefully he can.
I just feel like he is one of the few guys that could come off that bench and just not look outmanned on the floor. You know, I mean, a lot of our guys are coming off, and like Demezy and Jake, they're young and they're not particularly built yet or physical enough. And you look at Race Thompson, you're like, that guy could do it, and you're just without him. And obviously, he needs to get up to speed and fully healthy before he can play. But he's a guy that I'm just like, man, I would love to see him. It's gonna stink when he comes onto the floor and dominates. And we're like, man, if we could have had him 3 weeks ago, you know, I hope he gets on the. I hope he gets on the floor.
I hope we can have that moment.
I know. Me too.
All right. Coming up in our final segment, we're going to hand out our game ball. This will be a more interesting game ball segment than what we've had recently. We'll hit any other storylines we haven't hit. And then in last call, we will deliver our final thoughts on Indiana's loss to Iowa. That's next on the Assembly Call. Stay with us. You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Jerod Morris. I'm here with Andy Bottoms and Brian Phillips, and we're wrapping up our breakdown of Indiana's 77-72 loss to the Iowa Hawkeyes on Thursday night at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. Gentlemen, it is time for our game ball, and I feel like for the last 3 or 4 games it's been pretty easy, but Chat Mob, be ready, because I feel like we may be going in different directions with this one. And just real quick to bring everybody up to speed, Juwan and Romeo are tied with 6 game balls apiece. Durham has 3, Al Durham has 3, and Rob Phinisee, Devontae Green, Justin Smith, and Clifton Moore all have 1. I know. It happened. I think it was the Nebraska game. that Clifton Moore won. Yeah, because he came in and played good for like 3 minutes, and those were the only 3 good minutes of the game.
Was 3 more minutes than anybody else did, so that's where we ended up.
I've blocked out like a month of post-game shows.
So I'm pretty sure it was a unanimous game ball, too. Like, it was...
Great. We're really doing bang-up analysis here.
It's been a weird season. It's been a really weird season. Andy, let's go to you for the game ball first. Who gets your game ball?
Well, Ryan said he wanted to go first, so far be it from me. And if I just start talking, he would just interrupt anyway. So, Ryan, why don't you go ahead and go?
There's only one answer here, by the way. If you answer
there is.
You are wrong. It's Al Durham. The effort on both ends of the floor tonight was fantastic. He kept Indiana in the game.
You make me not like Al when you present it like that.
Stop doing
fault.
that. That's a you problem.
No, Al was really good tonight.
Al kept him in the game in the first half, hit some big shots, knocked down all 4 of his free throws, 2 of 5 from 3. He had 2 3-point attempts in the second half. Yeah. One of them was down and out that I thought was a good shot. But he had 12 points, 2 rebounds and assists, 2 blocks, only 1 turnover. And I thought he played the best defense of anybody on the floor. I thought he was all over the place defensively. And I think he deserves it for the consistent effort. When Indiana went into lulls, Al Durham did not go into lulls. And so I am giving it to him because I thought he deserved it more than anything. And I thought he was the best player for Indiana on the floor. He may not have been the best scorer, and he may not have put up the best numbers, but I thought he was the best, most confident player on the floor for Indiana, bar none.
All right, Andy, you want to go next?
Yeah, I mean,
because I disagree with that.
I nearly jumped in with your point, but the way he prefaced that made me actually not like Ryan. That it didn't really have anything to do with my feelings for Al.
Yeah, no, I quickly removed it from my feelings for Al. Quickly.
Yeah, don't take it.
I love Al Durham.
Yeah, don't take it out on Al. I mean, that's not fair. Man, this actually is a difficult one. I mean, I think the options really are Langford and Durham for me. And if you could give out a first half and a second half, I think it would be obvious who would get each one. Romeo played so well in the second half, 15 of IU's 36. Really, stepped up his effort on the defensive end. And
I've got a comment here.
And I'm sure you do.
Let's mute him.
But the reality is that I think some of the play, where is that in the first half is kind of what leaves you wanting more a little bit. God, I'm agreeing with him. This is terrible. So I'm gonna.
Okay, but hold on. Okay, hold on a second. Because you're right. Romeo wasn't great in the first half, but you know what? At some point, production matters. So Romeo's terrible first half: 7 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. That was his bad first half. Okay,
and Jerod?
No. Defensively, he wasn't good early, but he did get better as the half went on. But then in
Joe Wieskamp hit 4 threes.
I understand that. but he took on the challenge in the second half and improved within the game. That to me was impressive because, this could have just been a lost defensive game for Romeo, but he came back, took on that challenge. And so I didn't think he was good in the first half, but he was still productive and he did rebound. But then in the second half, again, and I still think Al played well despite not scoring and not doing a lot that was counted in the box score. But, Romeo puts up 15 points. He did make 3 threes tonight. Like, I think at some point, production does actually matter. And so when you combine that with the fact that he did take on that defensive challenge on Weiskamp, and not all those threes were his fault, by the way, in the first half. Not all of them were his fault.
3 of them were.
Okay, right. 3 of them were, but not all of them were his fault. But then he came back in the second half and played much better. So, look, I think Al had a really fine game. Don't get me wrong. But I do think sometimes we hold Romeo to such a high standard that when he has a really good, yes, as we should, but we shouldn't discount it when he has a really good game like he did tonight. And so, he gets the game ball.
I will say this: he had a really good second half.
He did.
The first half to me was not good. I thought he lost Weiskamp several times where he just wasn't even looking. I thought that other guys beat him off the dribble. I thought that he was not engaged in the first half as he should have been. Maybe he was cold coming into the game, but he came out flat. He made some plays to score points in the first half, but Indiana lost this game in the first half. We've all kind of said that over the last, hour. Basically.
But that wasn't just his fault. I mean,
no, it wasn't. But again, we've talked about this repeatedly. Your best players have to make big plays when things aren't going well. And when there was a 10-0 run, Romeo was wandering around the perimeter, not driving, not trying to cut things up, not trying to make a difference. I'm not saying he didn't have a good game. I thought his second half was stellar. And that's
true. This debate is getting kind of ridiculous because we both think they were the 2 best players.
That's the Romeo Langford I want. I want the guy who was in the second half. And we've seen it a lot this year where Romeo comes out and has a very slow start to the game or a very slow first half and then blows up in the second half. I want to see that guy in the first half to sort of lay the law down and say, I'm the best player on the floor and I want to win this game. I think Al was that guy in the first half. And then the second half, I thought Al deferred a little bit and was willing to pass up possibly open shots because they were moving the ball better in the second half. We saw that. I mean, they had a ton of assists.
No, I've used that very same criteria to hand game balls to other people. I just thought Romeo's overall production tonight went above that, and I thought the fact that he got himself back going defensively after a poor start, which is not something he often does, I was impressed with that. I also would like to mention that Sally and Patrick both think Romeo should be disqualified for airballing a free throw. I will take that under advisement, but I don't think it's going to change my choice. That was bad.
Yes, I think the chat mob is very heavily in the way of Al. Just looking at it, but that's my guess.
Well, the record will show that neither of you ever let me actually finish.
Yeah, I know.
Who I was going to give mine to. So
oh gosh, Andy's opinion matters. Oh my
Jerod has fallen into your trap by doing that.
I did. Sorry.
I'm tempted to give it to Duran just to make the chat mom decide.
Actually, Duran's he's a worthy choice. He had 7 assists.
4 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. And
played well defensively, too.
Let's turn it over to the chat mob.
I'm going to do that and let the chat mob decide. That way, nobody's feelings get hurt and whatever. I did think he played well. I mean, he had 5 assists in 8 minutes in the first half. That was pretty crazy. So for as much as Al was a big part of the first half, I thought Duran was as well. And I thought he got in foul trouble in the first half a little bit, but managed to stay out of it in the second half. So we'll do that. Although, according to Ryan, chat mob is going heavily with Al. I would probably lean that direction as well, but I think Jerod's argument is compelling. And
sure, I'm not
really compare, the entirety of the production and whatever. But yeah, I mean they were, I think those couple guys, stood out in my eyes. So we probably don't need to belabor it. But
no, I think Al's going to eventually.
We already have belabored it, but
I'm fine with that. I've been driving the Al train for a long time on this show, and I think he was really good tonight too. So I don't think you can go wrong with any of these choices. It's fun to debate them. It's especially fun to debate Ryan and his very debatable face over there. But yeah, I think Al's going to win this. All right, we have a comment from Franciscan Fireworks. He says, I'm waiting for you guys to hold Romeo to a high standard defensively. He has a high ceiling defensively and lays an egg repeatedly against inferior athletes. Is that a fair criticism of us? Because I feel like we have held him to a pretty high standard defensively.
Yeah, guys. I mean, if you're new to the show, maybe, and maybe it gets lost because we've had criticism of so many people. But no, I thought in the first half, I mean, I would have come on here, and we were texting about it. I would have come on here and blasted him for for playing poor defense. And I think that, again, it happens on both ends of the floor where he's just not as engaged as he should be. And again, I don't know if he's not coming out warm, if he's not, whatever, or if he just is one of those guys that needs time to get into a game. But it is frustrating as heck for us because we see the potential there. That guy could be an elite defender, and he's shown it at times. Wieskamp did not get going at all in the second half. I think he had 1 point in the second half. But, the first half, he kind of killed IU in that stretch. And Romeo, will get lost at times. It's also worth noting that Romeo was also a freshman who has never had to play great defense on anybody. So, yeah, the potential's there, but he's also young. And you saw Phinisee, who I think is an excellent defender and played very good defense tonight. Even he got lost late in the game on Bohannon and gave up a 3. That's just what happens when young guys are playing college basketball. They get lost and there are mistakes. But at the same time, you're right, and that Romeo needs to play at a better level. He really does.
He's also playing. He said, "I missed the text. Did you guys include me?"
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, buddy.
The other thing I'll say, and I would agree, I think we've been critical of that at times. And it's similar to what we say with Juwan, where we kind of are giving him a pass if he needs to, I don't want to say take possessions off, because that's not really what we mean. But be able to, be cognizant of, hey, I'm not going to get in foul trouble. I'm not going to do things like that. And then, you look, Romeo's he played 38 minutes tonight, every minute of the second half. He's playing so many minutes that,
it takes its toll.
The bigger sample size that you have, the more you're going to have plays that you get beat and different things like that. I do, in no way am I saying that there haven't been possessions where he has not been where he needs to be. And I think it becomes even more frustrating when you see him play defense the way he did in the second half. We've seen that even some earlier in the year because he's got good length. He can get into passing lanes and really be disruptive. And so you watch him basically shut down a guy who was torching IU in the first half and the second half tonight. And I think a reasonable reaction is to say, I want to see that all the time. I don't know that is realistic either, but it's a fair criticism because if he came out and at no point showed that he could play defense well, that would be one thing. But his second half defense tonight was really good. Just he and Phinisee both really just fighting through screens and all the things you have to do the way that Iowa plays, where it's a lot of trying to run guys off and some of those kinds of things. I thought that he did really well. So I think that to me is where the frustration comes, because you see him do it at times and not at others. But I put it into context a little bit, and you can see why that would be difficult for a guy in his position playing those kind of minutes to really stay that locked in for the entirety of the game.
All right, here's the comment of the night from the dude. He says, if Al keeps playing this well, I'm afraid that LeBron will try to scoop him up because he's the only AD that's a realistic option for him at this point. Game ball goes to the dude for the dude. Great comment. All right, so looking ahead, we are not going to preview IU Ohio State tonight because we are going to do that tomorrow, Friday, depending on when you're listening to this, in a special edition of the Assembly Call at 2 o'clock Eastern. Mark Titus, who you know on Twitter as Club Trillion and from the great college basketball podcast, One Shining Podcast, he is going to join us. He, of course, grew up an IU fan and then went to Ohio State, so he has a really interesting, unique perspective. He'll be joining us tomorrow at 2. Andy, I know you can't be there. Ryan, are you going to be able to be there for that tomorrow?
I cannot, sadly. I really want to be, but I can't. I'll text you in the morning and let you know. I may be able to work some things around. But
okay, if you have questions you want me to ask him, let me know. And anybody listening, if you have questions that you want to ask Mark, let me know. Really looking forward to that. And then, of course, we also have the IU Ohio State postgame show on Sunday. That's the game that Indiana will be wearing the special issue uniforms to celebrate Black History Month, and also they will be honoring Bill Garrett, the 70th anniversary of Bill Garrett breaking the gentleman's agreement in the Big Ten to not play black players. And I thought if you missed the video, there was a great video that Indiana basketball put out.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it had Al Durham, Juwan Morgan. What's the women's basketball player's name who's in that as well? We're going to show our ignorance of the women's basketball team here, and I apologize.
I know it. I think it starts with a Y.
Yeah,
so I'm not showing complete ignorance, but
yeah, and all three of them were absolutely fantastic. Just talking about the impact of Bill Garrett and appreciating the fact that without him and what he went through, and what he was willing to do and who he was willing to be, they might not be here. I mean, Bill Garrett, really, if you don't know the story of Bill Garrett and appreciate that, he is not just, one of the best players in IU basketball history because he's that, but he's also one of the most important figures. And some people understand how good of a player he was, don't understand how important of a figure. Other people understand how important of a figure he was and don't understand he was also an All-American. Yeah.
Yeah, in Big Ten basketball, not IU basketball, not just IU basketball. Like, he's a huge deal.
Yeah, and him breaking the color barrier, I mean, that helped usher it in across the country too. So I'm really glad that they're going to be honoring him. So that'll be coming on Sunday during the Ohio State game.
The women's player was Bendu Yaney, I think is how you spell it, or Yini. So it had a Y, so I feel good about that. I was close. I just couldn't. That
was fantastic. So make sure to check out the IU basketball Twitter account for that. All right, you're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. We are wrapping up here. Remember that because you're an Assembly Call listener, you get 15% off your entire order at HoosierProud.com and at HomefieldApparel.com. So if you want officially licensed IU gear, go to HomefieldApparel.com. And if you want one of our Assembly Call logo T-shirts or one of Hoosier Proud's unique Indiana-inspired designs, visit HoosierProud.com. And on both sites, use the promo code ASSEMBLY at checkout for 15% off your entire order. All right, gentlemen, it is time for last call. Andy, since you are in the Eastern time zone and it's a late game, you get to go first. Your final thoughts.
Well, you really just turn your head to the Ohio State game on Sunday because that game, while it was important coming in, takes on additional importance now. I don't know how many times we've said that over the course of the last couple of weeks, where this feels like a must-win game, and very few times has that actually worked out in our favor. But it really does become important because then you hit the road again for the Minnesota game, and it's one that Ohio State is not playing all that well of late. They got off to a really hot start. Perhaps that initial number one ranking in the net really got to their head and really derailed their season. But they didn't play well. Almost lost at home to Penn State earlier tonight in a foul plagued affair. And so you really want to see IU come out and be able to play well for longer stretches and try to put together as close as possible to a 40-minute basketball game with the kind of effort and the kind of defense that we really saw in the second half. Tonight, I think IU should be able, the offense seems to be picking up a bit. A couple games in a row, been over a point per possession after that really dipped. And as everybody's talked about, I think you can credit a lot of that to the return of Durham and how well he passed the ball in tonight's game. So just becomes important. Juwan's got to stay on the floor. Got another big test with Caleb Weston. I think you'll see a lot of Durham in that game as well. But they've got to find ways to keep him on the floor because IU's so much better with him out there. See some lineups with he and Jerod potentially at the same time and be able to get a big win because it has to start. It has to start now. How does IU get to the tournament? Can they get to 9 conference wins? Well, you're running out of games to get there if you keep dropping games at home. And that's one of the things you look at when you come into the season. If this team can just protect its home court, and while there haven't been a lot of home games lately, losing 3 straight Big Ten games at home is a trend that has to change in a hurry, particularly with 5 more coming at home down the stretch, and they've got to figure out a way to get back on track, and hopefully that happens on Sunday.
Andy, is 13-18 enough to get us onto the bubble on the strength of our big wins this year?
Is 13-18?
Is the bubble bad enough that we can...
The bubble is poor to quite poor, but I'm not sure it's gotten to that level just yet.
By the way, I want one note that you said about, all these games being must wins. I'm pretty sure going all the way back to the Northwestern game, we have argued in different ways that Northwestern, Michigan, Rutgers, and Iowa were all must win games. The one that we didn't argue that for because we just didn't think there was a chance to win was the Michigan State game, and that's the one that we won. So it's been that kind of season.
There's also a part of me that I realized this on Saturday. My wife brought this up, that there have been very few of IU's good wins this year that I have actually watched in its entirety live. And so if it makes anybody feel any better, my younger daughter is in a play on Sunday afternoon. So I will not be watching the game live. So I did not watch the entirety of the Louisville game live. Win. I did not watch, I think, any of the Butler game live. That was a win. And I did not watch any of the Michigan State game live. That was a win. So if this turns out the way it seems like things are going, I may only appear on the Thursday radio shows and just take the postgame shows off while I'm detained in an undisclosed location for the duration of the rest of the games.
He ought to be fired.
Coach has a point. Ryan, final thoughts. Last call, whatever we call it.
Another You sure you're okay over there?
I'm good. It's late.
Another just rough loss for Indiana, but I think that we can all feel a little bit better about this one. That said, Indiana's got to start moving. And I think Ohio State and Minnesota are 2 games, even though with a passion, I hate the barn. I think these are 2 games that Indiana really has a chance to get moving on, and they've got a lot of time between them. You get 6 days between them. You go out, you get Ohio State on Sunday, you get that win. Then you've got till the weekend to get Minnesota. You can get well, you can get healthy, and you can feel good about getting a win if you can beat Ohio State. Tonight, not a great performance at all in the first half. I think the second half, there was a lot to build on. You just got to get these guys to feel that sense of urgency a little sooner because they can close games. We've seen it before. We've seen it against Michigan State. We've seen it early in the season. These guys know how to close a game, and we just haven't seen it lately. And when they do close games now, they're closing them and it's too little too late. And you cannot do that. You have to feel that sense of urgency to put a game away or to get yourself in a good position earlier than they have. And, this is a team that's been a second half team when it was winning all year, but you got to start that process earlier than they're starting it. So I would say really these guys need to sort of focus up on Sunday. And I know it's an early start, but they got to focus up and come out and come out on fire and come out hungry to get that win. Because if they get that win against Ohio State, then things start looking a little bit better. You play at Minnesota after a week off, then you get Purdue at home. I mean, that place is going to be nuts. And they've shown they can compete with this Iowa team. They're going to go on the road and face Iowa, a team, again, as I said, they've shown they can compete with. Then you get Wisconsin at home, Michigan State, a team they already beat at home, and a team that's struggling. You get Illinois.
And we'll be there for that one.
We will. Illinois and Rutgers. I mean, these are they're winnable games down the stretch. They've got to find a way to come together and push through the finish line, though.
Yeah, I find myself here as we close up this show wanting to feel better about what happened tonight because there were some signs of, of growth in the second half. But, man, I can't get past, in the Nebraska game, the Michigan game, and this game, the periods of just listlessness from this team and from individuals on this team. And it was a lot less tonight. And so that's why, there is some reason for optimism that, hey, maybe Sunday will be even better. But, man, it's really hard to watch an Indiana basketball team that seems to save some of its least inspired play for its home court. And I don't really understand what it is, about this team and what's happened to this team since January. And maybe it's random, maybe it's not. I just know that we've all looked forward to, February and March because Indiana was going to come down the stretch with a lot of home games. And right now, this team actually seems more comfortable on the road. So we're going to find out if having this many home games down the stretch is a blessing or a curse. Hopefully this team is able to figure out what's going on, get itself righted, allow the crowd to work for them, make those big plays, make the effort plays when you can get the crowd going because right now it's not happening. And, when you're losing, when you're on a losing streak at home, that's something that needs to get snapped quick. So hopefully it gets snapped on Sunday when Indiana hosts Ohio State because it's a big win or it's a big game and a big opportunity for Indiana to get an important win that they really need now as we come down the home stretch. All right, that'll do it for us on this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall. You can also subscribe to our podcast by searching for Assembly Call wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to go to assemblycall.com or text IU to 66866 to join our free email newsletter. Thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU hoops again with you Friday at 2 Eastern with Mark Titus, and then after the IU-Ohio State game on Sunday. Until then, keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers.
Thank everybody for coming out.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
Thank you for being here and for listening to this episode of the Assembly Call. We appreciate it. And we really do rely on the support of audience members like you to keep our show going and to keep growing. And so we have set up a page on our website at assemblycall.com/support that lists 5 ways that you can support the Assembly Call. And we encourage you to choose whichever method is the easiest and most convenient for you. One of the methods is donating, and so many of you have donated, and we appreciate it so much. On that page, you can choose a monthly recurring donation or an annual recurring donation or just a one-time donation, whatever works for you. And if you don't want to donate, another way to support the show is you can use our affiliate URLs, iutickets.shop or iustore.shop when you're going to shop for tickets or gear. and we will get paid a small commission when you use those links. But however you support the show, we appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. And cut, gentlemen. God, we lost again, man. Speechless. Literally speechless. We usually have fun things to say on AC After Dark.
Yeah, not really.
I think we're all
had fun.
Late night,
Are we
another
still
loss.
on or no?
We're live on YouTube.
Oh my god.
It's a good thing I didn't just start swearing like I wanted to there. I mean, it could have been entertaining. I don't know.
Could have been.
Yeah, so tomorrow I do not think I'm going to be able to do it.
All right.
But I will let you know if that changes. What time are you having them on?
2 Eastern.
Okay, so it'll be 11 my time.
Yeah.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
But yeah, it's we're kind of all hands on deck this week. So
Okay.
because of certain developments that you know about
I do.
that aren't public yet.
Well, we will not make them public here.
No, definitely not. Sorry, guys.
Yet another late night tease.
That's not a tease. This is about my day job. It's not really a tease. Come on. Don't make me feel bad. This is actually like
Ryan doesn't want other people to make him feel bad.
Yeah, no, really.
Fine.
Yeah. But yeah. So anyway. I think
All right.
legally I'm not allowed to say anything. So this is not just me.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I'm messing with you. All right.
All right. Well, hopefully, me not being here will be a good luck charm again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man.
Hopefully. So are you good for Sunday then, Ryan?
Yeah.
All right. I'll see if Coach is free. Coach, if you're in the chat, if you're free Sunday, let us know. It's after midnight if Coach is still up. That would be.
Man's got a class to teach tomorrow.
Yeah, he does. It feels like a Friday, but it's only Thursday.
No, it actually is Friday.
That's because
Friday where I am.
Well,
Not
that's
for
true.
me.
That's true.
It's only like 9:30. I don't know what you're complaining about.
All
All right.
All right,
guys. Well, we'll reconvene on Sunday. Hopefully, this team can start a winning streak. By the way, I put out a post a couple weeks ago before the Michigan game where I tried to predict every game. I've been wrong on all 4 games.
Nice.
All 4 games that have been
You
played
are
so
really
far.
bad at pick'em. You really, really are bad at pick'em.
This year, yes.
When we did it on the air the last time we did it on the air.
That's because I picked Indiana every
well,
time.
he would pick IU
And-
every time.
and
and
the
it was
season-
terrible.
Hey, that was a pretty good strategy in 2012 and 2013 when we started the show. It worked out pretty well then. That strategy hasn't been so good outside of like the second half of the 2016 season since then. But here we are. All right, everybody.
True. All right.
Let's go to bed.
Later on.
See
Thanks.
y'all.
Bye.
See you guys.